Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Carol Simpson.
Good evening. From Saddam Hussein, a one-word answer to whether he will pull out of Kuwait by January 15th. The word is no. Equally tough talk from the U.S. side. The Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff use some of their strongest language yet about the possibility of war. We begin with our national security correspondent, John McWethy.
Saddam Hussein's insistence that he will not meet the UN deadline came in a German television interview. The Iraqi leader said President Bush sends his soldiers to a death without reason. They could survive if he talked to us. In the interview taped yesterday, Saddam Hussein said President Bush is a bad leader and will not be able to see a war through once casualties begin to mount. In Washington, Secretary of State Baker, who met with Britain's new Prime Minister John Major, said there had been no new offers from Baghdad to talk. Baker admitted the prospects for a peaceful settlement of the Gulf crisis were fading.
The behavior of the government of Iraq in the aftermath of these United Nations resolutions would not make one optimistic.
Earlier, Prime Minister Major on Good Morning America said that Britain and the U.S. are definitely prepared to fight if Saddam Hussein does not meet the January 15th deadline.
The West is serious. What he has done is unforgivable, and it has to be reversed. So that is perfectly clear. Only he can stop a conflict.
The administration got a boost today from House Armed Services Chairman Les Aspin, a Democrat. He said sanctions would not succeed in forcing Saddam Hussein to withdraw, and if other peaceful efforts fail, U.S. interests in the Gulf are worth fighting a war with Saddam Hussein.
There's a lot of evidence that he has not gotten the message. Part of the attempt, of course, to get Baker to meet with him is to make sure that he gets the message at least directly from a U.S. source.
But the chances of a Baker trip to Baghdad are diminishing, along with the prospects that the crisis will be settled peacefully. What the Bush administration appears to be doing, with the help of its allies and some key members of Congress, is preparing the country and the world for what might come next. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
Another part of that message was delivered in Saudi Arabia. The Defense Secretary Dick Cheney and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Colin Powell, are visiting the troops. Here's Chris Bury.
The Defense Secretary and his top general sounded belligerent. Saddam Hussein shows no sign of leaving Kuwait, they told the troops, and prospects for peace appear to be worsening.
It increasingly looks like he doesn't have the message and that we may in fact be required to use force to get him out.
They spoke of plans for an air, land, and sea attack.
When we launch it, we will launch it violently. We will launch it in a way that will make it decisive so that we can get it over as quickly as possible, and there's no question who won when it's over, so that we can then start the process of rebuilding Kuwait and sending our forces back home.
And if U.S. forces attack, one soldier asked, how far will they go?
The question is, are we just going to fight in Kuwait, or are we going to level Baghdad? No comment.
What if Saddam Hussein withdraws from most, but not all of Kuwait?
The only acceptable outcome is for him to get completely and totally out of Kuwait.
The tough talk generally played well, but some troops were still worried.
I think all in all, the rest of us would like to go home and say we deterred aggression instead of actually having to go into conflict.
And a soldier from the 101st Airborne wanted to know, is the U.S. really ready to fight?
Well, I think we're ready. Parts of the force are ready at different times. Are you guys ready?
That may be the answer Powell and Cheney wanted Saddam Hussein to hear today, to drown out a top general's warning earlier this week that American forces would not be ready by the January 15th UN deadline. Chris Bury, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
Saddam Hussein today tried to demonstrate to the world and his own citizens that Iraq is ready for war. Iraqi officials staged a massive evacuation drill. Morton Dean is in Baghdad.
It was deathly quiet in Saddam City, a part of Baghdad. No traffic was moving through the major intersection. Thousands of residents had been evacuated. He says we have to practice in case of an American attack. They were brought by bus to a flat, desolate strip of land 12 miles away. A small medical station had been set up and several hundred tents. This evacuation drill is part of a civil defense program that began seriously about a week ago. Iraq wants its enemies to see civilians prepared for war, but reporters' access was limited today, with no way of determining how smoothly the evacuation went. Morton Dean, ABC News, Baghdad.